Mm, Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Ooh. That's reality. Well, I've been out in the woods, and it's interesting way up in the mountains, and it doesn't really get too hot, and it gets to 80, 85. It's really a heat wave. Well, it's been up in the upper 80s, 86, 89, and it has been having a heat index of 100%, and so it's feeling like 90 something. So it's weather is something that's. I just read a very interesting report out of a English science journal, and it basically said because they did not comprehend the melting of the sea caps of the ice, and thus exposing the North and South Poles seas to direct sunlight, which would increase heating by exorbitant amount, that the melting was way worse than expected. And by not increasing or including this anomaly into the big picture, their representation up until just the last few months that this report came out, basically inappropriately, you know, forecasted that the weather changes wouldn't really reach to what we're experiencing for another 70 years. But because they didn't add that data, um, here we are experiencing weather changes that were told to us, oh, don't worry about what you're doing. You got another 70 years to get it together, and didn't quite get it together. So now we are already past the tipping point. I mean, way past the tipping point. And there's not much we can do about this. So they're just hem and haw and have more meetings. And see, but the interesting thing about this was that people like Mr. Newton already forecast this. There was a big Paris climate um, meeting. In 1891, when they forecasted all of this to the T, right? And that's just as oil and coal were coming on into big productions and use. And so people like Mr. Rockefeller did everything he could, along with Mr. Morgan and Mr. Rothschild, to manifest a continuation of denial. And that's why we had wars to distract from the real issue at hand. And we had the technology in hand. Nikola Tesla had wireless transmission of electricity, unlimited electricity. We're not to burn any coal or have any dams or do any of that. But that wouldn't make money. That'd be free electricity delivered without wires, without a system. So it'd be directly to you. And as electric cars come online, you will see in the next 5 years that technology be rolled out. And because even though World War II was the war that manifested us stepping out into space, we had already done that. And the people who were the Nationalist Socialists, the Nazis. They had other entities behind them, the Thule Society, etc. And they had been setting ground effect and lighter than air and anti gravity technology since the 1700s, and we're getting it pretty much together by the 1840s. And there was a California flying club in the 1840s. If you were to, and they came from Germany. And if you were to Google, lighter than air slash anti gravity slash aircraft developed in California by Germans, you might get something. So, all of this was told to me in 1969 um, and 70 when I was with Archie and the old crone. And the thing about the old crone um, was that she was something more than human, something out of time and space. And Archie had noticed me at Trinity and told the old crone about me, and she came and found me in the reserve library at the library, the old sacred library at Trinity, oldest school in the world, oldest continuous school. Now, YouTube has changed its protocol, so I don't even know if you're getting this. It's not like it used to be. So anyway, and there's only one of you there, and no thumbs up. And one reason why I haven't come so much is that I'm enjoying the deep green. Things are really green. I mean, we haven't had rain. Usually it rains at least 3 or 4 times a week, and we haven't had rain since our last big deluge. And that was good because I had to fix the road from the last big deluge and um, the overuse. So I've lived in the deep green, or at least I should say I've had this little plot for 20 years, and I lived here for the last. I mean, when John threw me out the last time 3 years ago, this is where I came. And the first winter I stayed with a friend in West Virginia for the winter, helped them out in their farm, fix their electrical everything. And the next winter, I around here, a friend of mine had a heart attack, and so he was in the hospital. So I took care of his animals and stayed in a nice warm house. So, and then this winter, I was out in the woods camping, and that was good training for when the electricity goes out. And again, I told you at the beginning of this year, but in February, March, and April, once the inoculation, the vaccine was brought out, that 2021 was going to make 2020 seem like Mary Poppins. And I actually said that before the 6th of January, and then look what happened on the 6th of January. And since then, politics has been irrelevant, erroneous, and doesn't represent you. And until you decide, and this is the number one thing at the Old Crone and every other great teacher I've had, made clear to me that uh, until you become the decider of your life, you're going to be a victim of it. So And Jesus, that was his main drift too, and the tool to use is unconditional forgiving love, right? You see much of that around? Not so much. And so this area has been, forget rural. I mean, this is beyond rural, but it's just, there's loads of water. It's a big lake, um, but it's been just rural farming slash out in the middle of the woods for the, you know, 200 square miles I live in, between the Appalachian and the Blue Ridge. And those two mountain ranges squeezed this 200 square miles into an accordion of sawtooth mountain ranges. So that, no radio wave, no cell phone, no TV, no nothing. Um, Satellites don't even work unless you're on top of one of those mountains, right? And no one's watching at all. And so um, that's why it has really great drinking water, right? So, and all the utilities are in the ground and out in the middle of the woods, out in the middle of the national forest. I just found this place, and so it was easy to hook up. It was easy to start, and it was extremely cheap, you know. And so I had pretty good credit. I was going to buy this other piece of property that turned out to be radioactive, literally, and I, just I was doing lots of other things and had other places that I was living, the school, my places in Florida, a couple other things in Virginia, and so this was just something I could afford, and it's later on retirement village for one, and but now I'm being invaded by Floridians and Texans and Californians, um, and so I, the closest interstate is maybe 70 miles from me, give or take, and the roads, the main state road is, probably 20 miles from me, and then there's county little roads, farm roads, right? Half of them stone roads, but the rich have come in and bought out all the dairy farms on one side of the lake, and luckily, 3/4 of the lake is still Forest Service land until the rich people bribe some politician. Anyway, they really moved in a big way, and I'm on these little roads going from here to there, and there's gigantic dump trucks of stone to build these multi-million-dollar houses in these new to come, um, you know, gated communities of the rich, um, Floridian, Californian, Texans. And so to do this, they not only have big dump trucks, but they have big trucks. So I saw this gigantic truck that was like half a football field long, full of cinder blocks, and you know, and gigantic concrete mixers, and these trucks are tearing up these little farm roads, and the county don't have the money or the will or the care about it. And this last summer we had three major big crashes, and because now not only are those construction trucks on the road, there's also now big tractor trailers delivering construction equipment and all kinds of things, and they have replaced all the there were about 20 mom and pop stores around this area, and they employed probably 1,000 people. And they last year or the end of the year before, Dollar General came in and strategically put six of their stores in this 200 and put all those mom and pops out of business. And the mom is great. There was a mom and pop just 5 miles from my front door. And they had a big garden, and so they had tomatoes and squash and zucchini and broccoli and spinach, garden fresh, watermelons and other melons, and they were all put out of business. and they employed about 1,000 people. Those people, those six Dollar Generals only have 9 employees a store, and all the money goes out of the county. That company is centered in Delaware at an LLC, and then from that point, you don't have any idea where it's coming from or going to. So it's very interesting. So I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and yet I am seeing the social, economic, environmental um, effect of not only the pandemic but um, the materialistic end run. And basically, I'm writing novels, and the one I'm finishing up right now is Our Legends. What's the name of it? Oh, I forget. But anyway, there's Legend, Legacy, and 4 other works in progress. So, 16 minutes. So, this summer, you know, get ready for a technological pandemic. A virus infects the internet and starts taking down all the systems. No electricity, your car won't start. No gas being pumped, no food in the supermarkets. Oops, gonna be interesting. No drinking water, especially you folks in cities. Holy moly. But see, nature is very interesting. So all these Floridians and Californians and Texans have come here. And so last year, like I said, we had 3 or 4 major, really nasty car crashes because our roads are like, in these sawtooth mountains, and so the roads go zigzag around the lakes and up and down the mountains, and you really can't go any faster than 35, 40 miles an hour, and people are zipping around in their Mercedes and Lexus sports cars and doing 70. Ooh, look at this, look at that, and people. This one guy, he was going up and down and saying, "Oh, it's this beautiful. Well, that's so nice. Look at this." And he came to a place where there was a literal 90-degree turn off the top of a mount, of a one of these spiky things, and he was like, "Whoa!" And he just went right off and flew through the air about a mile and a half. And just before he got to the lake, there was a big rock, and his car went, "Ooh, bam!" and like exploded into fire and rolled through the air and fell on top of a pontoon boat full of old, rich Floridians and Texans that were on a tour of the real estate. It was a tour being done by a real estate company to show the coastline where they could build their $1 million house. And this flaming Mercedes went right into it and killed all 12 people. And a lot of that has been happening. So this year, and it's only not even the end of July, we've had 8 of those kind of accidents. Um, in a pretty small road, this group of investors and their families were in a a large van, small bus, however you want to look at it, about 30 people. And they were like, do, 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 do. And they came around a corner, and one of those, 30-ton um, gigantic dump trucks of stone was right in their lane, doing about 50. That didn't end up too good. The guy in the truck, when he hit that bus, wasn't wearing his belt, so he flew through the windshield, ripping the bottom part of his body off on the steering wheel, and went right into the bus. And the velocity of his top part of the body basically hit the driver, um, along with the big dump truck hitting the thing, and again killed about 15 people, investors, it's really been going after the investors. It's quite interesting. And so I'm just watching the trend. So I would say the people who are really going to be affected by this are the people who have the investments in the worthless nothingness of stuff. And the sad thing about the end run of this is that the people who are going to suffer the most are your children. Your children. And most people don't care about their children. They're people wear their children like fashion accoutrement. And for the 2 months that I lived with the old crone, this is what she talked about. I mean, she would give me things to study. She would give me chores to do that would edify and educate me on my direction and understanding of things that most people don't even think about. And that brought me to this place of my life. And so I'm in a really beautiful place. Everything's very nice. People around me are kind of going nuts, you know, and they all got guns like you can't believe. And I mean, this one guy who moved in from Florida, he's got 4 kids. The oldest is 14, and I think 11 and 9 and 7. And he has gotten them all, since moving here, AR-15s, and he has them keep their gun ready to use in a corner of their bedroom, and always make sure that there's a full clip and one in the tube. I mean, anybody knows anything about gun safety knows that's not a good idea. And he's got them carrying, you know, concealed weapons, and these are kids. Their hormones are just popping. What happens when they get a little upset with mom and dad and go a little irrational, start to cry? They won't let me do this. Well, I'll show them. I'm gonna take my Mac 9 and my AR-15 and anyway. Good luck with that. And that's not just happening here. That's happening everywhere in America. So when you're at the supermarket, buy a few extra cans. I wouldn't call myself a prepper, but I got enough. I got really good water that even when the electricity goes off will still be there because it's an artesian well and I'm about 400 feet below its head. So, it's just the water pressure is ridiculous. The only thing I have to worry is if the pipe breaks. But still, there's a lot of water. But we're having more and more. 2012, we had a real serious heat wave. I hope this summer isn't that. I will know by in the next week or so. So, again, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and yet it is the center of observing the trend of and the soon trend, not the long term trend. And this English study about global changing of weather said, "Oops, we made a mistake. We didn't think the poles were going to melt as quick, so we didn't add that into our equation." And now, once we have the data and we've entered it into the equation, our algorithm spits out that we are experiencing weather that we thought we wouldn't be experiencing until 70 years from now. And we haven't done anything to change anything. So if we're in that point of reference, then we are past the tipping point, kids. And I would say that what we're going to experience is what Texas experienced. This winter they had the worst, cold they ever, 50 degrees below centigrade. Just like what? So they trying to heat the place and they burnt out their electric capacity. And our grid is so ancient. We have let our infrastructure go so bad. So I would say, there is a big bridge that was about to collapse on Route 40 in Tennessee, right at the point of, like a third of all industrial transportation on road goes over that bridge every day. They had to close it. So now they say, oh, route, and it's adding like billions of dollars of cost on products, So I would say there's going to be maybe somewhere around 10 catastrophic transportation um, accidents between now and Halloween. And there's going to be catastrophic failure of communication and power. And the COVID is going to, they're at the Delta variable. Ooh, well, that's only the fourth letter of the Greek alphabet, and they got another 40 letters. So that's how many variables, and they're going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Not kill everybody, just disrupt everything even worse than you think it's possible to be disrupted. And you folks who are out there in comfortable middle class suburbia, you think it's not going to touch you, that you don't live near those colored folk, and you don't live near those poor people, and you don't live near the, refinery. Well, there's a town about 70 miles from me called Kingsport, which is the largest biphenyl plastic manufacturer on the planet. And it has two of the largest liquid natural gas tanks in the world, like 1 billion gallons of liquid natural gas. And they're really old, they're like 60 years old, and they're made out of concrete. They're underground. You don't really see them, but they're right there near I-26 and Kingsport. And they have all these other real, like, factories, like, remember Bhopal? There's a couple of Bhopals in this town. And so if those tanks ever lit up, and right where Kingsport is right at the beginning of what would be called the Roanoke Valley, but there's a valley that kind of where the Appalachian goes this way and the Blue Ridge go that way. That's where this, New River Valley starts, and it goes from there all the way to the Potomac and the Atlantic Ocean and the East Coast. So if those two tanks ever blew up, they'd be like bigger than an atomic bomb, and it would be funneled down this valley. So it would, obliterate Blacksburg and, Tech and Roanoke and, oh, D.C. and Philly and New York City and on into Boston maybe. But definitely the force of that explosion and the heat of that explosion is going to do chemical things to those chemical factories that create the most deadliest poisons. And it's going to be in that witch's brew being blown towards the East Coast at rocket speed. You're not going to get, you can't get in your car and run away. It's, when that thing goes off, that whole Michigan is going to be hitting New York in less than 5, 10, 20 minutes. And if you're out and about without, hazmat suit, you're going to be, that scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the Nazis were, dissolving. That's what it's going to be like. So that's what you're looking at. Not the end of the world, just an uncomfortable day. We've, if you were living in Syria, you've been having a uncomfortable day for 11 years, right? You lived in Afghanistan, you've been having an uncomfortable day for the last 100 years. So, good luck with that. So here it is, 29 minutes and 42 seconds. So I'm going to skip out of here because no one said anything. And I still don't know what the frack is up with YouTube. But anyway, love you guys. You can always comment on my the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And you can always leave something at PayPal when it says who do you want to send it to. Send it to the dude awake 42 at Gmail. And all those who have sent it, I appreciate it. Though I know it still works because about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks ago, somebody sent me $17, and then somebody sent me $40. So it still works, and it's always appreciated. I live on $400 a month, but I live very comfortably because I don't need anything. Anyway, even though I'm really sick and I take all these medicines, and I finally got my orthopedic shoes, which made the difference. It aligned my feet, which aligned my ankles, which aligned my knees, which aligned my hips and aligned my back, and I feel pretty good. So, but then my healthcare provider started, screwing up with my medication, and so, anyways, there's always something, right? But it's not, it just takes me a little effort to, just I go in their office, I sit on their desk and say, oh, I'm not moving until you fix this. Okay, so remember, be the decider in your life. Okay, I love you guys.